So yeah, I just couldn't keep my mouth shut any longer about this. I'm so sick of people asking the same stupid question over and over again or pointing their fingers in the totally wrong direction. So this question that you keep seeing in the media, why do things still seem so hard even though inflation is being managed and the various measures that are being taken to correct, the economic instability is improving. Unemployment is high. Yeah, etc. And then pointing the finger like even though things are numerically better, Biden is ruining the economy, or things were better under Trump, or whatever. Like, okay, first of all, the economic situation has nothing to do with the president. That's not a real thing. Secondly, I'm about to explain to you why things feel bad, even though all the numbers are reflecting a different reality. And the underlying thing there is that all of that economic analysis, all of the mainstream news coverage of all of that stuff, it is a PR campaign, and it has never reflected reality because they leave out the most important calculations. And I'm about to blow your mind here. You won't hear any of this stuff on the mainstream news, and you won't learn about it in school other than the most cursory sort of overglossing. So I did about 10 minutes of research with the assistance of uh, Microsoft Copilot here to get these figures. And these are all just statistics that have been available for many, many decades online that anybody can look up. It's not hard. But I'm about to explain to you why the economic reality that we all live in now in America is it's horrible. So, according to one source, the average hourly wage of an American worker in the 1950s was $1.50 an hour. Adjusting for inflation using the Personal Consumption Expenditure Index, this would be equivalent to about $16.20 in 2023 dollars. So, yeah, $16 an hour. It doesn't $16.20 an hour doesn't sound all that big, but it's bigger. And then, according to one source, the relative purchasing power of $1.50 in 1950 was equivalent to about $19.16. So that means that if you were actually making $16 an hour, but every dollar of that 16.20 an hour was capable of purchasing $19.16 worth of goods and services, you'd be making a hell of a lot more money in 1950 than you would today in terms of the overall purchasing power. But this is just the tip of the iceberg here, right? Okay. According to one source, the median home value in 1950 was $3,477. Adjusting for inflation, this would be equivalent to about $39,469. So that's 2023 dollars. We're just going to keep going deeper here. The median monthly rent in 1950 was $42 a month. Adjusting for inflation, that would be about $478 a month in 2023 dollars. Now, here's where things get really interesting. So, the median household income in 1950 was $3,319, which was equivalent to about $37,758 in 2023 money. Therefore, the percentage of a worker's total income spent on housing in 1950 was about 13.6%. Now remember that number, because the median home value in 2023 is $374,900. The median monthly rent is $1,600, and the median household income is $72,000. Therefore, the percentage of a worker's total income spent on housing in 2023 is 26.7%. This is almost double the percentage that people spent on housing in 1950, indicating a worsening of housing affordability over time. So that's the biggest, worst factor in why things seem more dire than they are according to mainstream economic metrics. Furthermore, the percentage of Americans who owned homes in 1950 was 55%, while the percentage who rented was 45%. Fascinatingly enough, it's exactly the same in 2023. Things have been unchanged in all that time in terms of owning versus renting. So that's basically a negligible factor. Pretty interesting. Now we get to the next step, the next nail in the coffin here. The average American healthcare costs for an American citizen in 1950 was $146 per year, which is equivalent to about $1,950 in 2023 dollars. The average healthcare cost for an American citizen in 2023 is $8,435 per year, more than 4 times the cost in 1950 when adjusted for inflation. So, yeah, nail number 2, right? That is a massive difference. Okay, the third nail in the coffin here. The average annual cost of food for a typical U.S. household in 2023 was around $8,435, including $1,600 spent on food away from home. Adjusting for inflation using the PCE index, this would be equivalent to about $1,950 in 1950. That's kind of funny. So that's basically $1,950 in 1950. Therefore, the relative price comparison adjusted for inflation between 1950 and 2023 is as follows: is basically a 333% increase of food prices from 1950 to 2023. 333%. Okay, so just finally to summarize all of this data, because that was a lot of numbers and a lot of math. Housing, when adjusted for inflation, 1950 to 2023, was an 873% increase. 873%. For food, it was a 61% decrease. Go team. We lowered prices there by 61%. That's great, right? Okay, healthcare, a 421% increase. And lastly, the hourly wage adjustment for inflation, an 81% increase. So, and that's the sort of like minimal figure. And if you were to add 81% increase for wages and a 61% decrease for food costs, that is very, very negligible when you compare the increase in housing prices of almost 1,000%, 873% increase, and the healthcare increase of 421%. So, yeah, you wonder why things seem harder and people are struggling to pay their bills and all of that, despite all this bullshit optimistic data of getting inflation under control and almost optimally, economic speak, full employment figures. I mean, duh, it's because we're just bailing out a sinking ship here with these other costs, housing and healthcare, uh, up, hundreds of percent comparatively. So, yeah, it doesn't take a degree in high level math to figure out why things are feeling different than they are when you're cherry picking these statistics that just do not accurately reflect the reality of the situation, which is changes over time and adjustments for inflation. If you were to do those calculations and apply them to every figure that came out of modern statistical analysis of our economy and all these categories, the picture would not be pretty. It would be extremely dire and kind of tragic. And that's one of the reasons that they don't do that, is because it's nice to be able to take these fake numbers that are generated using modern statistics, where honestly people are just in a horrible situation with chronic abuse and exploitation and mistreatment happening on a national scale, and that's become the day-to-day reality of most Americans. But it's been so gradual, and it's been happening for so many decades that it's not even really considered worth reporting on, even though it's like pretty much the biggest story of the century, at least in terms of economics in the United States. So, yeah. Anyway, all irrelevant. We're all gonna be annihilated by climate change and microplastics and space meteors. Anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm so sick of hearing all the back and forth of the circus of nonsense about like which or what politician is responsible for the current state of affairs, or like, oh, things are getting better and it shouldn't feel so bad because employment is up and inflation is being managed. Like, hello, like, reality is not those things. Please, like, take into account the chronology and the realism of life on the ground, which is reflected in these inflation adjustments very clearly. Healthcare, outrageously expensive. Housing, outrageously expensive. Food, um, miraculously cheaper now. However, less nutritious. Therefore, more illness, more healthcare costs. All of these things are interrelated. Yeah, anyway, I'm ranting at this point, but I'm just so pissed off. Like, ugh. People have a right to be angry. They have numerical statistical justifications for being absolutely enraged and rioting in the streets. Not that that would accomplish anything. But yeah, things are horrible. It's not your imagination, and it's statistically verifiable with a little bit of statistical lookup. So yeah, yeah, you can feel bad. It's okay. You you have a reason to feel bad.